Right guys, currently we are standing at that exact point that I spoke about this morning. At the moment, you might be asking yourself why I'm holding a number of things. For one, I'm holding a rusk because it's delicious. And you all know how to make them now because Chef Ryan taught you how to. And we've just stopped for some coffee. And that's why I'm holding coffee. The third option, or the third item, is a stick. And that's probably the strangest item. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to draw for you in the sand. At the moment, I'm standing in the Kruger National Park. Right here behind me is the world's most famous game reserve. A truly inspiring thing if you're a South African, or if you've ever been here before, or if you just love the world of conservation. Where Brits are standing right now, filming across this road, is the Timbavati. And I'm here to tell you today about a very inspiring story about how this all happened. If you look down the cut line here, where Brit was just filming, down that way, a very long road, probably too long for the camera to pick up, and we can look all the way down that way. Also, a very, very long road. There once was a fence here, not too long ago either, probably only in about 1993. Alright, so if you can imagine, there used to be a great big game fence going all the way down this road. And this was before the times when people thought inclusive conservation was the right way to go. So as South Africa's national parks has evolved and matured, it's decided to embark upon a process, and a lot of conservationists upon a process of growing this incredible system into one of the largest and most protected and wonderful nature reserves for wildlife in the world today. So where there was once a fence stopping wildlife from moving, there is now no more a fence stopping that wildlife from moving. And any animal that you see in the Timbavati, like the lions we saw this morning, can easily come across and into the Kruger National Park. Now in this direction here, which happens to be east, if you walk far enough, you'll eventually get to Mozambique. It's only about 43 km from where we are right now, so funny enough, Mozambique is quite close, or the coast is actually quite close, and eventually you'll reach the coast. And I'm going to draw for you on the ground now the whole map of how everything works. But in that direction is Mozambique, and in that direction there, which is west, is the heartland of South Africa, and eventually the Drakensberg Mountains. It's a beautiful, beautiful conservation story, this, and it's something that we are all incredibly proud of, and we thought that we'd bring you a brief history. And I do say brief because there's so many factors that come into play with this story that I can't possibly ever cover them all here today. But what we're going to do is just talk to you a little bit about the size of this open system and a few things that have happened throughout the history of the open system. So what I've done is I've drawn a map of South Africa. For those of you that can't see it, I will trace it for you. So right over there is the map of that's Cape Town. Over here there's that horrible flat rock that all the Cape Townians love there. I'm going to tell you about some mountains that dwarf that in comparison, but that's where Cape Town is. You've all been there. If you've come to South Africa, you've all drank lots of wine, you've eaten lots of good food. Believe me, all of us in South Africa, we love Cape Town, we love getting there. But there's a funny saying that the people that live in Cape Town see that as Cape Town, and the rest of South Africa as Johannesburg. Where of course South Africa is a huge, huge place. If you're wondering, Johannesburg probably sits somewhere about here. Okay, so what I want to do is point out a few things for you. So we got the border of South Africa with Cape Town, with Johannesburg, and then we come up the border here, and then we get to Mozambique, and Mozambique comes in like that. Mozambique's quite a long country, it's a big country, and it's also regarded as one of the most remote countries in the world. There's a lot of wildlife going on out there. Of course, it is a fairly lawless country as well, so they have huge poaching issues and so on. So if you ever do get the chance to support Mozambican conservation and go on safari there in future, please do. It's a wonderful place. And the very north of Mozambique, as I say, is regarded as one of the most remote and unspoilt nature areas or natural areas in the world. But it's this Mozambican border that comes into question most often for us here in the Kruger National Park, because the Kruger National Park hugs it. So if you can see where I'm drawing there, the Kruger National Park, and I'm going to draw it a lot bigger than it actually is, just so that you can see it. But the Kruger National Park comes in like that. It's got quite a big bulge here at the bottom, and then it comes in and it runs all the way up the side of South Africa until it reaches Zimbabwe over there. All right, so Zimbabwe comes into the system there. So this is the Kruger National Park, like that. Now on the Mozambican side, the fences have come down at a certain point, about 50% of the way up. So those fences are down, and it opens up into something that we call the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park. It's a massive conservation area as well, and it's on the Mozambican side. We call that a peace park. It's a natural area that shares an international boundary where governments are cooperating in order to conserve and preserve and protect these beautiful areas. So we have the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park coming in there, and then going up into Zimbabwe, we have this small strip that leads up to a large conservation area here, to an area called Gonorizo, all right, which is another beautiful, beautiful system in Zimbabwe, which is also a great safari destination. So what we have is something that we call an open system. All right, basically that means animals within this system can move all around that system free to do what they would like to do. The crazy thing, if you take the distance from Johannesburg to Cape Town, which can take you a good 14, 15, 16 hours driving, depends how heavy you are on the pedal, depends how many traffic cops are out, or if you have your Schiphol with you for luck to avoid them. But that distance there can take you about 16 hours to drive, and it is about, what's it, Brit, 1400 kilometers? So yeah, about 1400 kilometers. I'm sorry, Cape Townians, if I'm getting that wrong, don't shoot me. But yeah, that's about 1400 kilometers, and it takes you 14 to 16 hours to drive. Now the Kruger National Park boundary, and there is a fence on this western side. All right, it's a big fence. What you have to understand is in South Africa, immediately outside the Kruger National Park, we have a huge human population of about 7 million people that constantly puts pressure on that boundary. And so in order for us to remove human-wildlife conflict, there is a fence in place, and also to try and stop poaching and just general bad behavior. So that entire fence goes all the way around, comes back up the border of South Africa and Mozambique, up until about that point there, and then it goes into the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park, or Peace Park, and then up here and into Zim. That entire fence line is 1,842 kilometers. All right, so it is a good, about 30% further than Johannesburg to Cape Town. And that's a long way. I've done that drive. I don't want to ever do it again. It's a beautiful drive, but my word, being in a car that long is quite a scary or daunting task. Our American friends that like to travel cross country will know all about that. But yeah, 1,842 kilometers. All right, so it's a monstrous boundary. Now let's focus again on the Kruger National Park, which is the South African side. The Kruger National Park, which is that area there, sits at about 2 million hectares. Now for our American friends, or people that prefer to work in acres, that's about 4 million acres, is just over 2 hectares or 2 acres per hectare. So 4 million acres, and that adds up to about 20,000 square kilometers. All right, I'm giving you broad numbers here. They've been rounded up, rounded down, just to help me in remembering, but also you in understanding. So we sit with a beautiful open system on the South African side of 2 million hectares. If we include this side here, the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park, and this part going up into Zimbabwe, we then get closer to the 4 million hectare mark, just under 4 million hectares. It's about, at that point, 3.6 million hectares, or around about. So now we're sitting at about 36,000 square kilometers. All right, for those of you that don't know, a hectare is 100 meters by 100 meters, so it's pretty easy to do the maths backwards from there. However, I want to talk to you a bit further today about the Greater Kruger National Park, whereas that's where the Timbavati is found. And it's not just the Timbavati, it's the Timbavati, it's the Klaseri, it's the Umbabat Game Reserve, it's the Thorny Bush Game Reserve, it's the Baluli Game Reserve, and we can also include Sabi Sands and Mala Mala, as well as Manyaleti into those names there. So if you've ever been to one of those game reserves, that means that you've been to the Greater Kruger National Park. All right, this is an amazing, amazing system. It includes both national property, provincial property, as well as private property. And the private property is where the Greater Kruger National Park comes in. So we have the Kruger Park, which is national, and then we have this conglomerate of game reserves that pops out just around the midsection here, which is called the Greater Kruger. And the Sabi Sands is a little bit further south, with the Manyeleti sandwiched in between. All right. Within that APNR, that Association of Private Nature Reserves, which is what the Timbavati is a part of, that conglomerate, we get the Timbavati, the Klaseri, the Baluli, the Umbabat, and the Thorny Bush Game Reserve. Manyeleti is a provincial game reserve. However, it is part of the open system. And then you get Sabi Sands, which is world famous. I'm sure you've all heard of Sabi Sands. They've got some incredible places there, such as Londolozi, Mala Mala. And Mala Mala is a separate property, but for this, we have included Mala Mala in the Sabi Sands area. So what you end up with is all of these areas here. They were once divided, if you can imagine. I'm just going to do that for argument's sake. They were once divided like that, and this is as early as, or as short ago as 1993. There was a big fence running all the way between there. There was a fence separating the Thorny Bush, the Umbabat, Klaseri, Timbavati. And in 1993, some rather intelligent human beings got together and decided that for the good of conservation, we should drop these fences and allow animals to move freely. All right. That doesn't mean that humans can move freely. Okay, we cannot go into the Kruger National Park here for security reasons. All right, we don't want to give them hassles and so on. They've got a lot on their plate in terms of rhino poaching and other poaching and just, you know, infiltration, which we will get to at another point. But in 1993, those fences were taken down. All right, and it produced the large APNR, the Association of Private Nature Reserves. Now in 2000, we're struggling to find the correct date, but in the early 2010s, the Baluli Game Reserve added an extra 40,000 hectares of private property to this open system. And in 2017, the Thorny Bush Game Reserve added an extra 14,000 hectares to this open system. So as you can see, this place is still growing. There's still opportunity for the open system to grow, for animals to get more space, for conservation to win. So what that led to is basically all the fences are down between those private areas, and we can, if you really wanted to, I could walk, probably wouldn't make it in one day, but I could walk all the way to Sabi Sands, check into one of those places, have a cup of coffee, and then walk back. Alternatively, I could take my Land Rover. That would probably be a bit easier, but I could do that. But because of all these private areas on this western boundary incorporating, it added an extra 272,000 hectares to the open system, which brings us to an overall number of 3.8 million hectares. All right, so just under 4 million hectares in total. In fact, we're going to call it 4 million hectares, including that. So if you remember, that was about 3.6 million. This now adds an extra almost 300,000. So we're going to put it at about, 3.94 million hectares. So we now have an open system of 40,000 square kilometers, allowing animals to move naturally the way they once did, and to go about their daily and natural processes the way that they should. All right. Now, on the very western part of the Kruger National Park, you get what we call the Drakensberg Mountains. All right, and the Drakensberg Mountains, my drawing sucks. For those of you that are geography majors, please, don't slaughter me in the comments. I'm doing the best I can. But we have the Drakensberg Mountains. A little bit further up, we have the Soutpansberg, but I'm going to focus on the Drakensberg here. Now, the Drakensberg Mountains are South Africa's largest mountain range. All right, they can range, or they go, it's not a very high mountain range, but it is a very long mountain range, up to about 1,400 kilometers. And that goes all the way very close to a city called Pietermaritzburg and a city called Durban, and the coast, or the wild coast, the south coast of South Africa, all the way to an area called the Underberg. However, in this area here, we have a mountain called Mariepskop, which is the largest peak in our area. And if you ever come on safari here, we will definitely show you. But if you just look to the west and you see the mountain range, that highest peak is Mariepskop. And from Tundutula itself, which is somewhere in the heart of the Greater Kruger, all the way to Mariepskop is 53 kilometers. So if I want to be pedantic, Mozambique is actually closer to us than that mountain is. However, there's a lot of us within the conservation fraternity that believe that this entire low-veld system that we're dealing with, that broad area, should find its limitations, its natural limitations, on that Drakensberg. All right, those Drakensberg Mountains, and the western or the eastern boundary should be the coast of Mozambique. Now that would be in a perfect world, ladies and gents. That would be in a perfect world where we conserve animals and nature to the most of our ability. But we also have to remember that there's economic constraints, there's jobs that need to be provided, and there's people that need to be fed. And what that means is this area here at the foothills of the Drakensberg Mountains is a very, very nutrient-rich area and very good for farming. And so these days we have a beautiful system of farmers working in conjunction with conservationists to produce an area called the Kruger Canyon Biosphere Reserve. All right. It's not a fenced-off reserve, it's not a reserve where animals move freely, but it is a conserved area, it is a managed area, and you need permits to do certain things, and there's a lot involved there. But yeah, that would be the natural boundary of the Kruger National Park, or so we believe. And the ocean on the Mozambique side would be the eastern natural boundary. However, because animals are now able to move freely in and out of the game reserves and into the Kruger and vice versa, I don't know if you remember me this morning talking about the wildebeest and how I was saying their numbers have come up remarkably even in the 4 years that I've been here. So if you can imagine in 1993 when those fences came down, it allowed so many more animals to start moving in. And that takes time. Animals get used to the fact that there's a fence here. They don't even come look anymore after a while. All right, except for cheetahs and wild dogs and things that know how to get through them. But a lot of animals just don't even come have a look. So it's taken us almost 30 years, sorry, let me do the maths on that, 20 years, to finally get animals infiltrating further and further and further into this APNR, into the Greater Kruger. All right. The Timbavati was once stocked by itself, so was the Klaseri, the Umbabat, the Baluli, the thorny bush. But now what we're finding is that animals are starting to move in from the Kruger and animals are starting to move out from here. It's great for genetics, it's great for natural habits and habitats as well. It leads to things like greater grass succession, better genetics. As I say, you know, male lions are now able to move freely. You know, with fenced off game reserves, they often have to dart a male lion, move him from one game reserve to the other to get his genes spreading and so forth. In this system we do not have that problem. This is a completely natural system. And another incredible fact for you is that of that entire area that we're talking about today, 4 million hectares, only 0.6% is developed. That includes all the roads, all the lodges, all the water pipes, everything like that. 0.6% of that landmass is developed. And there's another interesting saying that people say from time to time in the Kruger. I don't know how you would measure this. I suppose people in white coats know how. But they say that if you're driving in the Kruger National Park, and there are roads where you can drive your own car in the Kruger Park, and rest camps where you can sleep, and campsites where you can camp, and so on. But if you drive every road within the Kruger National Park, and there's lots of them, you'll only see 5% of what that national park has to offer. We're talking about a very big, very inspiring, beautiful place to work, and I could not feel more blessed to be able to call this area my home. Anyway, thank you for joining us for another episode of Tundatula Sofa Safari. If you have any questions on the history of the Greater Kruger National Park or any of the animals we saw today, please feel free to comment below and I'll get back to you. If we see anything along the way home, we'll definitely stop. Will, I hope you have a great bachelor party. If we can find you some actual elephants, not just elephant tracks, we'll definitely stop and I'll show you those elephants. But also for all of you that are a little bit interested in this and interested in the tracks, thank you so much for your questions and thank you for your requests, and we look forward to keeping this coming for you. So we just came across a tree that you don't really see too often, at least not in this area. It's not a tree that I have a lot of experience with, but we do see it from time to time, and I always remember my father telling me about this tree back in the day. It's called a black monkey orange, and it grows these kind of oranges, I guess. They can get a fair bit bigger, and they are rock hard. Humans can eat the fruit, but what you find is that in these ecosystems there's so many things that actually want to get them, from kudus to bush pigs. And for those of you that don't know what a bush pig is, it's something that's rarely seen, but it looks like a pig, quite a fluffy little pig. They're quite big, but they only come out at night. But anyway, that's one of the animals that likes it. So the bush pigs, the kudus, there's a couple of other things, probably a nyala. So because there's competition to get this fruit, apparently what people do is they will bury these. They'll come and they pick them off the tree and you bury them until they're ripe. And when they're ripe, they go this kind of like yellowy, pale yellowy color. And then you know it's ready for eating. But we bury them to keep them away from those hungry mouths of other animals. I unfortunately don't have a knife with me today. I can't find my Leatherman. It's probably somewhere out there in the bush, but I'll keep looking. But I don't think I'd be able to cut this open anyway. It's really quite hard. I'm sure you can hear that. All right. I've never eaten one myself, so I can't comment too much on that. As I say, I have not really encountered this tree too much, but when you drive past it and all these fruits are hanging, it's not something you commonly see in South Africa or on African trees as fruits of this size. We usually have fruits that are tiny little berries, or maybe the plums, which are about the size of a large marble. So to see something like this growing out here is pretty cool. It's a lot bigger than a marula, and the marula tree we'll chat about at some point. But yeah, nice to happen upon them. They do have quite interesting leaves. They're very tough. And if I bring that right up to you, you can see you've got the main vein going through the middle and those two prominent veins coming out the side. So that's a very, very good telltale. And there's another one for you. Now, I remember hearing something about you shouldn't eat these leaves because it will, I think they cause you to vomit. They cause you to purge. So you need to be careful not to eat the leaves. So don't do that. But I don't find too many humans, chewing at the bit to chow some leaves. But the fruit is apparently something you can eat. So when they're blue-green like this, you shouldn't eat them. They're too hard. But once they go yellow and a little bit softer, then it's time to chow them down. All right. So yeah, pretty cool. There he is. Black monkey orange, everybody. And yeah, cool little add-on for this morning. Nice to see another tree. Unfortunately, it's one that I don't know a huge amount about, but I know a little bit about it now. So yeah, cool. Let's carry on. You want that?
Should we take it home and bury it?
Yeah.
And then eat it on camera?
Yeah, you can. That'd be great. You can film Brit eating a fruit on camera. And for those of you that are wondering what the scientific name is, it's Strychnosis how is it? Madagascarensis. Can't remember. The scientific name of this tree is a Strychnos Damn you, Latin. Too many of these things. Strychnos madagascarensis. There it is. I didn't look in the book for that. As we were about to leave, the classic Brit, there's bigger ones, came up, and there we go. So let me see that original one. So there we go. That's what I was playing with originally, and that's what they can get to. So yeah, they can get to about the size of an orange. Maybe not one with the GMO factor going for it, but yeah, nice big fruit. That's what it can get to. So we're going to keep these. We're going to bury them. We're going to see if they ripen for us, and then we'll try and eat them. Yeah, Brit's going to eat them, not me. And if she says they taste good, then maybe I'll try some. So in front of me is Chad. Chad's busy doing a solo safari. And so he is the lucky charm here this morning, the lucky leprechaun, to finding these two boys on my right hand side that we saw this morning. Growling. So, as I say, Chad is our lucky leprechaun this morning. He's just over here busy doing his solo safari there. We had these three males this morning, not as dramatically as this. They are now fighting over apparently a very small piece of meat. So Chad did come back into this area after we had left a little bit later on, and he's found them, yeah, having a bit of a squabble. So back to Will Cock. If anything reminds you of a bachelor party, it's probably this. A lot of testosterone getting thrown around. Meat is on the table. Drinks have been had. And guys are getting a bit rowdy. So we're going to enjoy these three lions as they growl and fight it out over their little piece of meat there. Sooner or later it will get too hot for them, so they're probably going to go to the shade and get sick and tired of fighting over a mouthful of food. But yeah, let's stick with them. Let's see what they do. And hope for a little bit more drama. Sorry about the lack of elephants, Will, but we thought that this would give you a better bachelor party than some big old pachyderms. as you can see, there's no love lost between coalition partners. They really couldn't care too much about each other when there's meat on the table. By the looks of things, there's not a very big kill here. It never was. There's not a lot of blood involved. You would see a lot of blood on all their faces and so on. So whatever it is, it's something small. Chad seems to think it might be a warthog, but absolutely no confirmation on that. But meat is meat when you're a lion. So yeah, these two have still not taken a mouthful. They are kind of just holding on to alternate sides of whatever it is down there. And every once in a while, one pulls, the other one growls, and no one's actually getting anything to eat here. But they're trying to, which is fun to watch. The third male is lying a little bit off to the right-hand side. He's not even bothered in getting involved in this dramatic line of events. He's just taking it easy in the shade. I think he's got the right idea. There was a female with these boys this morning, if you remember. He was talking about those black spots behind the ears. But I'm sure that she was promptly chased off, whatever this was. And if one of these lions did actually make this kill, in other words, if they didn't steal it from a leopard or hyenas or something, it was probably her. And then she was quite quickly, or her kill was quite quickly repossessed from her by these three dorks. So yeah, there's no manners or etiquette on the table when lions come across a kill, particularly when there's male lions on the scene. They will happily chase off all the females and cubs of their pride as quickly as they can to make sure that they get as much meat as they can. It's only really once the males have become rather fat and lazy that the females might get a chance to come and feed, as well as the cubs. So yeah, but there's no cubs in this situation. They're all back at the den. They're still too small to be wandering around during the daylight hours like this, unless of course there is a big proper kill that's worth taking them to. But yeah, nice to see the three Nahrus finishing up their kill. We're going to keep the camera on them for a little bit, but this will be the official sign-off for the morning. So if anything more dramatic does happen, we'll be sure to capture it. But yeah, have a wonderful day. Enjoy your beer, enjoy your gin and tonic or your cup of coffee, no matter where you are in the world or wherever you are. And yeah, we'll see you at the next one. Look out for Chad's solo safari coming out as well. I don't know if he managed to capture too much of what happened here because he forgot to push record apparently. But it happens to the best of us. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. But have a look out, keep an eye out for that, because there might be a little bit more coverage of what these three got up to this morning, other than what we got. Have a great day, guys. Cheers. Just so I don't turn into a pink prawn for real. Pink prawn.